Welcome ladies and gentlemen, we got 150 plus ratholes in this video. I will hurry up a bit because there is a lot of ratholes. We will first do the land ratholes and then the underwater ratholes, and then I got a couple of mesh ratholes after that. I will tell you if the bats work or if it's 6 times damage while I'm in the rathole. The bats will be painted red if bats don't work, and they will be painted green if they do work, so you can also see it for yourself. And if the structures are also painted red, that means it is 6 times damage, but I will still say it. Here's rathole number 1 at 86.9, 36.2. Quick look around near the waterfall. Right here, right under the path. This one is not the biggest, but you have a decent amount of room for a starter base. And that space is way too small to do anything with it. Bats do not work here. Now at 87.3, 35. We are right above the other one that we were just at. You can see in this little tunnel, there is a gap in the ceiling. Where you go into the ceiling, you have a decent amount of space. Bats do work here. And this is the only entrance. You have to be careful of the zeppelins and the quetzals and people building into your base, so it does have some weak points, but for early game, this is not half that bad. Now at 34.7, 31.4. We're at the floating island. Quick look around, there's the red top, there's the green top. And in this wall, you have the red hole. Pretty small entrance here. It is 6 times damage, but bat works. You can see. Good amount of space. But when you go down right here, you do have another entrance. But this entrance is really small and easy to defend. Again, only floating island at 35.5, 29.9. Quick look around again. You got the spike. The green up is closer now. The red up is a bit further away. And when we look over here, you can already see that there is a sort of gap in here. So we go straight here. And if you go up, you can see the gap in the ceiling. You got a little bit of space. And here you got a little bit of space to work with. And even a tiny little space on top of here. Of course, it is 6 times damage because it is close to the cave that's inside of the floating island. Bats work, however. Next one at 37, 30.6. Again, floating island underneath. Next to the cave there. You can see the green up is right over there. And this one is pretty known. You have this pillar sticking out. And the entrance is right here. This base build is pretty strong and is being used a lot. You got this space, you got a bit of more space above here. Also on the other side. A bit of space up. Gotta be careful though, it is 6 times damage, but bats work. Next up at 40, 25.4. Again, on floating island. There's the green up. There's the waterfall. And you can see here a sort of gap into the wall with some bushes here. If you go inside and then to the right, you have a really small amount of space here. This is an okay teleporter spot, but you can't really live in there. It is simply too small. However, bats work. Number 7 at 46.7, 17.6. Quick look around. There's the floating island. There's the green up. And right there you got this, yeah, kind of rocky wall underneath. And if you go in, so it's over here. When you go in, you have this first part with the direwolf. Free pet. And you got the base here. Bats work. It is not 6 times. And it goes on for quite a long time. You only do have to watch out for these mesh walls, because these mesh walls are easy to mesh. It's even in the name, to be honest. Next up at 49.9, 5.3. Got another rattle. It is on the edge of the map. You can see the blue crystals there. There's the border. And here you can see this kind of platform. And on top of this platform, you can see the hole. This specific rattle layout is kind of copy-pasted across the map a lot. Because wildcard is a bit lazy sometimes. But this is one of the better ones. You can see you have a ton of space, it is not 6 times, and bats work. Okay, now we're in the underworld at 34.5, 51.2. Real quick here. If you go on top of the pillar, and then on top of here, you can see there is a hole. You can go into the hole and you have a tiny bit of space. There are better ones in the sun, but I still wanted to show you this. Do you remember when Ark actually felt alive? And you could balance your real life with Ark? Who are we kidding? We never balanced it. But you can with TBS Ark, the best PvP and PvE experience you can get on Ark. On Genesis release there will be a fresh start on the no-wipe servers. This is the best time to get into TBS Ark, especially with the great TBS features like 48-hour offline raid protection during the week, a battle pass, and many exclusive quality of life features, like sorters and the new mutation candy. You can even watch your Ark logs from Discord, so you can see what's going on wherever you are. And if you're not interested in PvP, there's also PvE servers that offer world bosses, shiny and apex dinos, and even bases to raid. This really keeps the servers fun. Press the link in the description or scan the QR code to join TBS Ark. And if you're planning to buy something in the TBS store, use code Dratchy to get 10% off. I'll see you on the cluster. Next up at 26.3, 11.6. We are in the cave on the edge of the map again. You got this giant pillar, and in the giant pillar is the entrance right here. And you can see you have a decent amount of space. Building into this base is very hard, so that's a big plus. Bats work, it is not 6 times damage. You just have to be careful because of course throwing carbos into your base or diving into your base is a bit easier here. Next at 41.1, 51. At the sun in the underworld. You got a part over here on the top. Now this might not really be a rat hole, however, I'm still gonna put it on there because you have this little bit. And be careful though, this spot is pretty famous because of a Road to Derp video. However, bats work and it's not 6 times damage. Next up at 34.2, 53.9. Again in the underworld, and this is one of the stronger ones. There's the sun, here's the water. You got this pillar up, and in the pillar, or on top of the pillar on the side, you can see the entrance. Even with high gamma, it is still pretty dark in here. So I'm gonna grab a torch. This is the first little room. And then you go through the first hard area. You got this open area, so put this full of defenses. And after this, it is basically a ton of little caves, which you can use as space, and sometimes it opens up a bit, so you can use it for storage or crafting. You have to be careful though, because these are very tight tunnels, so rocket running this is easier. However, for early game, or if you only have heavies or whatever, it is still a pretty strong base spot. Next up at 47.6, 18.6. Quick look around here. There's a floating island, there's the green up. This is basically a copy-paste of one we had before. Almost. Inside is a bit different. Here we have it. It's a bit more open like here. But then you have the big room right here. And there's less tunnels to go through. Little bit back here, but it's not that big. Bats work and it's not 6 times damage. Next up at 52.3, 5.1. On the edge of the map, there's the cave on the edge of the map. We are right above it as well. And you can see this sloped part right here. If you go into it, you got this little slope part down. You have to be careful. This one is pretty known. It is not the strongest rattle, but you do have a ton of space. Early game, it's honestly pretty good. And of course, you can build all the way up here. So your main base is away from the entrance. Next up at 32.8, 4. Also on the edge of the map, but this time we're kind of inside of the cave. And then on the edge right here. You can see there's a waterfall, there's the ice palace. We are right above another waterfall. In this corner, you can already see the hole. You go inside, you have a crouch part, so that's really strong. And you got this. You don't have a lot of room for your utilities, but defensive-wise, it is very easy to defend. And of course, bats work and is not 6 times damage. Next up at 49.8, 5.3. Quick look around again the edge of the map. Above the cave. And right there you can already see the crack. So if you go right to it, you can crouch in, you kind of have to find the way in though. It's over here. You got this first part for defending the crack, and then it kind of opens up and you have a decent amount of space. This one is not bad, and bats do work, it is not 6 times damage. Next up at 65, 64.1. It's the Skull Island over there. And right here, underneath this platform, you can already see the entrance. You have to crouch in it. And this part is kind of tricky to go through. You basically need to hook this corner until you walk out. I mean, walk in. And then you have this pretty big open space. It is 6 times damage though. Beds do work. And you actually have a decent amount of space. There's a bunch of tunnels going around with little rooms you can use. The strongest part of this base is the entrance. Sadly though, it is 6 times damage. Next up is a pretty good rattle at 50.9, 14.3. We're in the cave on the edge of the map. There's the waterfall. And here is the rattle entrance right here. You do have this little part which you could use as an outside TP or whatever. But here is the real entrance. This is a pretty tight area to get in. Really hard to get in even. However, when you get in, you can see you have a decent amount of space. You get this space a lot for defense. They go through that crack and you have this entire space going all the way up. You're not gonna run out of space in this one. Next up, 75.2, 87.2. It's on the edge of the map near the redwoods. You got this incaping right there, so it kinda shows where it is. Then on top you have the hatch frame rattle. This used to not be here. So Wildcard basically kinda changed it into this rattle. However, for some reason, they did not make beds spawnable here. I don't know why they didn't. So you cannot spawn on the beds. It is not 6 times though, and this base spot is not that bad. It could be worse. The only bad part is you can build into it if you're not careful. So you do need to place a shit ton of spam. At 88.5, 79.1. Next to these two waterfalls, also kind of on the edge of the map, but just inside of the redwoods. You can already see that there is something there. You can see these man-made structures, and if you go inside you have a bit of space, which a little space in the back over here. So also Wildcard made this, but they did not make beds spawnable. Kinda sad. Next up at 69.24. We are inside of these giant waterfalls under the giant bridge connected to the redwoods. And right here on this height, you can see all these platforms. You can see the same kind of platform that we've seen before. And the rat hole right there. So if you go inside of it, it can be really dark here, even if you have gamma on 5. It does not change a thing. Got some room up here. This one is pretty big. Beds do not work though. It is not 6 times damage either. And overall you do have a good amount of space. Now at 47.3, 65.2. Quick look around, you got this river, you got the blue up there. And inside of this pillar, all the way to the ground here, you can see the entrance. A RG does fit in here, so it is really nice for early game farming. And that's also what it's being used for. A lot of times there is a bob living in this, or there is a raided bob base in this. Beds do not work, it is not 6 times damage though. 37.8, 62.7. Quick look around there. There's the blue up, there's the red up. On this beach. And then right over here. You see in the ceiling there's a gap and you have a little bit of space here. However, it is 6 times damage and the beds don't work. Normally when it's 6 times the beds always work. Well, not over here for some reason. At 6.7, 49. Quick look around, there's the red up. A lot of lava and stuff. And on this pillar is the rattle. You can see a similar kind of platform that we've already seen before. It's another copy-paste. You go behind the bushes, so it is kind of hidden. And when you go in there, you kind of have a similar layout to the other ones. However, this one has less space because the grass is kind of poking through. So this one is smaller than the other ones. On the edge of the map again at 74.5, 88.4. Quick look around again. And then right here, under this giant rock with the kind of vines going underneath it, you can go on top of it and you have this little ledge. Beds don't work. Again, it is made by Wildcard, but they didn't make beds work for some reason. Doesn't matter, it's a pretty shit spot anyway. Might be a nice teleporter spot, but that's it. Next up is a pretty strong one at 16.8, 48.7. We're on Lava Island. There's the red top. There's a lot of lava pools. However, this pool with this corner we need. Because when we go into this corner right here, behind the tree and the bone, you can see it goes down. We have multiple apartments which we can defend, making this base pretty strong. However, don't place all your turrets there, because most turrets should be defending this part when they drop all the way down. Then you have a huge amount of space. This is also a great place for a bunker in the rathole. However, place your bunker back here and not in front of there. So you got a decent amount of space. I'm pretty sure, yeah, if you go here on top, you will touch the lava, so you cannot really use this part. But it's fine, the lava will also protect you from meshes, a little bit. But still, if you place your bunker, war room here, whatever, make sure to defend against meshes, internals everywhere, batteries, aggressive tames, and this counts for every single rathole. Next up at 31.2, 46.8. Quick look around here. Under this bridge to the left, and then on top of here, you can see the entrance. Now you will have to crouch and grapple. That's the easiest way. Just gonna try to force your way through. Like you can see there, it is possible. It might be a little hard at first. Then you come to this very open room. Bats don't work. It is not 6 times damage though. And you have all this way to the top. So this base is pretty strong. And the entrance is also really strong. Next up at 71.2, 24.1. We're outside of the waterfalls under that bridge again. Kind of on this height. Where we go into the waterfall. You will see this slow part and all these rocks sticking through the water. If you go in here, you will see a bunch of rocks, and here we have it. It might be kind of hard to find for your first time, but it's a pretty big entrance, so eventually you will find it. They got this little space. Bats don't work here, sadly. You have this first part, honestly pretty defendable. And then the second part, if you also put defenses here, defending that entrance and this little side entrance. Now at 63.3, 20.1. Right next to South Ice Cave, I'm pretty sure this is called. And we're now on top of this big bridge connected to the redwoods. Where we go down here with this pillar. On the bottom you will see the light of the tech gen. There is a tiny rat hole in the back here. Kinda looks like one of the score serve rattles that used to exist. It is really small, it's not the best, bats don't work. Now at 17.3, 63.7. Quick look around. We're over here. And on this pillar right here, connected to the bridge that goes over there, you can see the same kind of copy-pasted rattle we've talked about before. Of course, you got the room up there, you got the room in the back here. And you even got a little tiny hidden room over here, which is kind of hard to get into. Bats do not work, but it is not 6 times damage either. Here we're at 40.9, 49.2. Quick look around. And we got this pillar over here. And if we go down, we're pretty close to the ground, there it is. You can see the same copy-pasted rattle here as well. When we go inside, it is kind of similar. This entrance, very similar. You got the space up there. This one does have good space in the back here though. There's only this little clump of, well, land with grass. But besides that, it's kind of similar to the rest. Next up at 22.1, 58.1. Quick look around again. It is this pillar pretty close to the beach and to the pillar that is actually on the beach. You can see here, it's the same kind of site and behind the bushes. Same copy-pasted style of rat hole. Same space up there and in the back here too. It's only a tiny bit different than the last one. Next up at 8.4, 57. Again, Lava Island. Quick look around here. And close to the beach, you got this sort of cave entrance. It has 2 entrances here. It's basically just a bridge. If you go to the left top here, you can already see that it kind of goes in there. You can see the bushes. Oh. It is closer to the left where the bushes actually are. You got a pretty good entrance. And when you go all the way up, a pretty good sized rattle. Now I use this for a video, so that's why there's a lot of stuff in here. But as you can see, it is pretty big. Not bad at all. At 1565.4, Lava Island again. You got this side, there's a sort of cave entrance, you got this pointy pillar. And here you got 3 lava pools on the side. You want the middle one? You're just gonna go down here to the left. And if you swim down, you got a little air pocket. Of course, you do need some HP, flippers make you faster. A power main makes it better, easier. Stuff like that will help. And then you got this little space. How high does it go? Around here. So you do have a decent space for your base. However, beds don't work. It is not 6 times damage though. Now at 52.2, 48.9. Quick look around, this one is kind of harder to find. So go from there to down here. And then you'll see the stairs. You're gonna follow the stairs until you see a hole in the roof. Here. You can see it here. Now there's 2 sort of entrances. This one is the best. You have to throw a tame out to get in. You used to be able to use a grapple and kinda grapple yourself inside. I couldn't get it to work now, so maybe I'm just doing it wrong. I don't know. Beds don't work. It is not 6 times though. And of course the entrance is pretty damn OP. At 39.6, 61.8. Quick look around here. It is this giant pillar and you got this platform, this really flat platform, between these 2 rocks. When you go to the right side behind the bush, there's the entrance. Tech boots do make this a lot easier, by the way. Now, same thing here. It is really hard to get in. This might be one of the spots where you can't get in like that, so then just use the tame. Just use the grapple. Be aware, any spot where you need to use a grapple to get in can be bannable. So if you're playing on the unofficial, check it out for yourself, but unofficial it is bannable. If people report you, you could be banned if it's a grappled only rattle. Quite a lot of space, really not bad. You got this flat part which is really nice and a bit of space underneath. At 44.9, 24.1. Quick look around, there's the green orb, there's the floating island. And you got this waterfall right here, so kind of to the left of green orb and next to this waterfall. If you go behind it, you can see there's a hole here. This is also a Pelagornis rattle, so you need to throw out a Pelagornis or an Ovis, and then you can get in. However, it's a very small spot. It is not really worth the hassle. At 16.4, 19.1. You can see those giant waterfalls there, and this is the entrance of the cave on the edge of the map. I'm not sure if it has a name, I don't know. Then on top of here you have a rattle. You also got this left part, by the way, it's a small little extra. This is just right next to the rattle. This is a cryopod rattle though, so you have to be careful there. With other words, it is bannable to build here, so I would not build there. I would put some turrets on this location though. And then this crack right next to it is the base entrance. It's a really good entrance to the vent. And you have this amount of space. This is not bad. At 62, 22.7. There is a South Snow Mountain. There's the Redwoods Bridge. And right over there, you can kinda see where it is the rattle. So underneath this rock, you go into it. Then to the left. Just like that. You got this first part. You know, it is not the strongest, but it's still pretty defendable. Then you have a crouch part right here. It looks like you can't crouch through it, but you can. And then you got this little part. You go down even more. And you got this huge area. Also great for a bunker spot. Just be aware of the mesh wall and you should be okay. Now we're at 31.8, 46.2. Quick look around here. And this one is pretty strong. On this pillar, between these bridges, you can see there's a sort of hole underneath here. And it is tiny. It doesn't look like you can go through, but you can. And if you go through, you can go up over here. Oh, yeah, over right over here. You have this first part here, so you can have some turrets shooting straight down. They will be annoying to deal with. And then here the main defense. You got a decent amount of space, a bunker fits over here and you have some space in the bunker. And of course you can build up. Have your main war room like at this height, turret shooting down. Here we're at 28.9, 75.7. Quick look around. And it's in this pillar close to the ocean and this little double bridge thing. You got the same copycat rathole again. When we go inside, you can see it's the same shit. Upstairs. But here, there is a wall in the middle of the rathole. So this one is worse than the other ones. It's just a lot smaller. Bats don't work, no 6 times damage, but too small to be worth. At 71.6, 23.6. These giant waterfalls again, with the Redwoods Bridge above. You got this flattened part almost at the top of this waterfall. And then we go to the second waterfall and you see this flat rock sticking out. You can see it's pretty flat here. And on the left top of it, you can see the entrance. You either need tech boots or grapples to get up here. You cannot walk up there. Then you can simply walk up until you're at this part. However, if you go up here, you can crouch inside. And then you have this space. This base build is also pretty strong, good entrance. And it goes all the way up. Of course, it's a bit of an awkward build over here on the top, since it's all pretty small. But if you have a couple layers, you could use it pretty well. 25.5, 11.3. Inside the edge cave again. The edging cave, whatever you want to call it. We got in this corner, you can kind of see a triangle shape if you look good. If you get closer, you can see the triangle hole right here. However, you cannot go straight in it. You have to crouch, grapple, and then you're in. Bats do work here. It is not 6 times damage. You have a lot of room also on top of here. A ton of room. More than enough. So this rattle is pretty strong. 32.4, 1.3. On the edge of the map here. And then this pillar sticking out, there's the waterfall you see. Above this pillar you can already kind of see the hole there, it's a bit darker. When you go in, it is a crouch entrance. You're gonna need to place a foundation here. That kind of grapple, crouch through the hole. And then you're in. There's not a bunch of plays here, but bats work. It is not 6 times damage. You have these hallways. Kind of down and into here. So there is a good space if you combine all of it. But I don't think you're gonna be able to fit an indie forge or something like that here. So you would just have to put some big forges somewhere outside. There's a bit up here as well. Maybe here you can fit one. You're definitely not gonna fit a big forge, but maybe an indie forge. Yeah, okay. You might not be able to fit a steam forge, but a indie forge for sure you can. At 48.3, 18.4. Quick look around again. There's the green orb, there's floating island. And right here, I keep shitting because it's so cold. And right here, when you kind of see this rock sticking out, underneath here is the entrance. You do need a foundation again. Just like the other one we were just at. And you also need a grapple. Just kind of yoink yourself in. This one is really similar. It is basically... Well, it's not the same. Like, you have more space here, but the entrance is basically the same. However, bats do not work in this one. And you have some space down here as well. This one might have better space, but if you cannot use bats early game, this place will kind of suck to live in. Now at 66.1, 65.7. We are here next to the skill island. You got this tall pillar, that was the other one. In this little shack. Underneath that flat stone. And now here you got the exact same thing. Like you can see, it is literally the same. Just like the entrance, it is literally the same. So all you do is try to go in, kind of drop here, kind of squeeze your butt around it, and just like that, you're inside. You got an okay amount of space here for some of the defenses. But then when you go in here, you have a huge amount of space. You basically have the whole pillar to yourself, which honestly is pretty cool. Just be careful, any part that is close to the edge, I can show you real quick. If you go into ghost mode, you can kind of see what is close to the edge. This isn't. So if you place a normal generator on this edge, they cannot bite it from outside, because you can see it is way too far away. However, if something is close, like the... yeah, like maybe here. Yeah, let's say here. If you place something right here. If you place something right here in this corner, the wall is pretty small. Okay, this is still very thick, but you get the point. If it's small, you have to be careful. They might be able to mesh bite it. Always check how thick the wall is around you, so you know where to place your important stuff. Now we're at 36.8, 6.5. Quick look around there. Right next to the green orb, you got this pillar with the little platform sticking out. You have them there as well, but it's on the right side of the thick pillar. And then when you go down to the bottom, basically, right next to the trees, is the entrance. Kind of the similar rattle that we already seen, but even smaller. This is the smallest, not the other one that I said was the smallest. But that works here, so that's cool. At 32, 45.9. Quick look around again. We're on this pillar with the bridge to the small pillar that is connected to the land. Small pillar in front, and here you have the exact same ledge with the exact same rattle. However, this one is different. It has water. So you have a water part here, which is kind of cool. If you're a really small tribe, you could use this as an underwater breeding rattle, which is not bad. And it's pretty hidden too, so, well, hidden, sort of. 38.8, 43.4. Quick look around. Then it's in this pillar. And we go down to the bottom. It's the exact same rattle again. Yeah. But this one also has water. And this is actually a pretty small entrance. You have the top part. And down here you have a little bit of water. However, it is so undeep you cannot raise any water dinos here. So that kind of defeats the purpose of having water in your base, to be honest. Yeah. At 50.4, 35.7. Quick look around, that's the floating island. The redwoods is there. This river. And right next to it, and right next to the edge to the floating island, you have this pillar with the exact same rattle. Who would have thought? Who would have thought? But hey, this one also has water in it. Let's go. So it's the exact same, but you have water. You do have a little deeper water, so you could raise some tames, but not many. Throwing a Beslo out there would be kinda hard. Maybe you can get like max 2 in here. Number 51 at 29.9, 38.1. Again, there's the floating island, here's the swamp, and guess what? Exact same pillar. You got the rattle right here. So you can crouch inside again. It's a bit dark here, but that's fine. And you basically got the same thing, but there's more water, but it's really undeep, so you cannot really do anything with it. You cannot really raise anything here, to be honest. And beds don't work. At 19.9, 57.6. Quick look around again. Lava Island, you got this thing poking out. And you got this pillar right here. If you go underneath, you can kind of see the same rattle again. However, it is behind these bushes. When we go inside, you got this. There is not a lot of space because of the grass going into it, and beds don't work. At 14.5, 59.9. Quick look around, there's the rattle. There's a big lava pool. And over here, you got these scar pillars, wyvern scar pillars, whatever you want to call them. If you go on here, you got this little ledge with the green on top. If you go there to the left, crouch, because this is a crouch entrance, you have this pretty small but okay defendable base spot. Of course, it is not big enough for mid game, but for early game, this one is pretty strong. At 60, 28.5. Look around, there's the snow mountain, there's the redwoods bridge, and here you got one of these pillars again. And all the way down, a bit lower than normally, you got the same rattle again. I don't know how many this is, to be honest. This is a lot of these. And beds don't work, sadly. The grass also makes this base spot a bit smaller, but you do have like a little tunnel to the back, which is okay-ish defendable for early game and stuff, but it is not the best cave. You do have a bit in the back here, but it's really small, so you cannot do too much with this. Here we are at 12.8, 38.1. Near to the edge of the map, near the lava island, and you got all these pillars in the water. And here's one pillar with the exact same rattle down there. There's a little island attached to it, so that's how you can find it. And when you go in, you kinda have the same thing as the other ones. You got a bit more room since the grass is lower, so you got this space in, and a space in the back, so this one is not all too bad. However, beds still don't work. Now at 20.4, 20.8. Again, close to the edge of the map. Big waterfall. Snow north. The green up is there. And then we got this pillar on the edge of this cliff. And you can already see the entrance right here. The exact same one again. What a surprise. However, beds don't work, and it's pretty small because of the rocks sticking through it. At 36.2, 39.6. You got the floating islands right there, you got this little swamp, and here you got a pillar again. Guess what? The pillar has the exact same rattle down here. You should recognize this sort of rock by now, this platform. So then these become very easy to find. Of course, got the little higher up spot down here, which is always okay-ish, pretty good. Beds don't work sadly, but you do have a ton of space in the back here. Which does make this base spot okay-ish. 13.7, 45. 13.7, 54.2. Quick look around here. Next to the red obelisk. You got this pillar next to the lava pool. I mean, there's a lava pool here too, but it's the one above there. This one. Then, of course, you got the same rattle down here. Like you can see. You got some space up here. And some space down here. Now at 50.4, 14.5. Quick look around here, there's the green up. You got this sort of pillar bridge. And underneath here is the entrance. When you go left of the tree, you can see here an entrance. However, you need tech boots to walk up here or grapples. It's one of the two. Because then you need to crouch and grapple. Then here you have a little wall, which is also hard to get past. You also need to grapple and crouch or have tech boots for this one. And then you come in this little room. You have a little bit of space here. The entrance is really strong, however you don't have that much space. You got some space in the back here. Down there a little bit. And here is the biggest room you have. At 21, 13.7. We're right here, again, at the edge of the map. Above the entrance of the sort of underworld on the edge of the map. The cave. Then we got these rock formations. These little platforms that are really flat on the bottom. And then in this corner you got this weird rock again. And I place a foundation underneath there because we need one. Then you have this hole. Now you're gonna need a grapple for sure. There we go. It took a little bit, but then you have something. This entrance is pretty damn strong. And the beds work here. It is a little bit of an awkward build, like you can see. It is not the best, but you do have a okay amount of space, especially if you're solo or duo. And of course the entrance is just super strong, so that's really nice. Now at 84, 78.6. Quick look around, you got this waterfall. This is near the edge of the map. You got this bridge down going into the water like it's some sort of dock, and you got this pillar. And you guessed it, it's the same rathole. I promise guys, I promise you guys, it is only a couple more of these and then we're done with these ones. You got the top part again, and the bottom part, it's a bit smaller because of the rocks going inside. And you have a little bit of a water part. However, beds don't work. Next up, we are inside of the giant lava cave on the volcano island. And when you're in the cave, you have to go to 19.3, 57.6. So the entrance is somewhere there. You just go down the stairs until you see these gates. Then look to the left top, you can see these mushrooms. And above the mushrooms, you got this entrance. I'm pretty sure this spot also got known in someone's small trap series. Or it was a boosted series, I'm not sure yet. Then over here you have a hold down. Like this. And you got a good amount of space right here. So this second entrance is pretty damn strong. And the beds work, of course. The only downside is it is 6 times, of course. But to be honest, with this entrance, that's good enough. 42, 26.4. We're on the floating island again. But this time on top of it. You got this largest pillar that is on top of the floating island. And you can kind of see here the same platform. But this rathole is a bit different than the rest. When you go inside, you have the same kind of entrance, which is not bad to be honest, and beds work here, and it is not 6 times damage. That basically makes this spot 20 times better than the other ones. Okay, this next spot is pretty small, but 47.3, 54.6. Quick look around, we're in the underworld. And on this side we got this really tiny rathole right here. It is really tiny, so I don't want to go over it too much, but beds work, of course, and that's it. At 37.60, we're on the edge of the map. There's the ice palace, and you got this rock right here. You might have seen it before. This is also underneath the floating island, with the same rathole in it, basically. So you got right here, you got this part, and it goes all the way up. So this is pretty defendable. It is not 6 times damage, this one, so this one is a bit better than the other one. Because you can also not build in it from there. This is way too far down to be able to build in it, so that's good. Like you can see, it goes up to there, so you cannot build into this one. At 40, 14.5. Quick look around. You got the ice palace here, and to the right, over here, you got a way up. You can already see the glowing of the generator. You got this really sneaky little rathole. This one is also not big, but it is pretty sneaky. So I just thought I'm gonna include it anyway. Number 67. 36.5, 30.6. On the floating island, this one is pretty popular. It is in this pillar and you go in from down below here. Okay, I made it daylight real quick so you can see it better, but it's in this pillar and on the side. This one is really known. This one is built a lot. It has a pretty strong entrance, but you have to watch out because people can build into it. So you do have to be really careful. Beds work here, however, so that's really good. And you got a bit of space all the way till here, where it opens up. And this spot is really strong. This second entrance, perfect. You got this whole area for yourself. It is really big. It is really easy to defend. That's why this spot is really known and kind of taken a lot. Now at 51.5, 5.3. Quick look around, edge of the map again. You see that part. And you got this ramp up with this kind of rock sticking out of it. And you got this weird platform, like wavy platform underneath again. And you can see the hole right here. You can go inside it. Even the pterodon fits, I'm pretty sure. Then you got space down below, which is kind of a lot. And it goes even down further. Like you can see, the spot is pretty big. But that's not all, because you can also go up. Right here. You can see a good amount of space. Pretty defendable base. And the best part, beds work. At 63, 5.3. Quick look around, we're on the edge of the map again. There's the Redwoods Bridge, it's kind of foggy. Then you got this side area where the walls kind of float above the water. If you go underneath there, and then I have to find it real quick. Oh no. Yeah. Then over here you can already see the generator light. You got a kind of sneaky hidden base spot right here. It is not the biggest or the strongest, but it is kind of sneaky. Now at 18.5, 14.3. Again, edge of the map, waterfall. You got this kind of ramp up here. And here you can see this platform, and to the left of the platform you can see a kind of black dot here. If you get closer, it is an entrance. It's kind of hard to see. It is a little crouch entrance, so that is really cool. And you got this huge space to work with, even a moose called Tom. He just took a shit in front of me, okay. If you look around, you do have a ton of space here. And the good part is, the beds even work. Now at 84.5, 45.7. In the redwoods, next to this waterfall, and this little bridge. Down here you got this rock sticking out, and you can see there's a little area behind it. If you go right there, you will see a tiny little entrance, which you have to have an office for. You can throw a crowd-potted office out there, whistle him closer, then you need to ride him. Might be, yeah, well, I got it now. You just ride it, and kind of, I was overweight for him. And now we're inside of the rattle. Now, even for this part, you're gonna need or grapples or attack boots like I do. And then kind of squeeze your way in. So this entrance is really strong, but be careful, it is illegal, because it is a Pelagornis rattle, this is illegal. So you can be banned. Well, ARK illegal. Against TOS. Not illegal. 26.95. Near the green orb, you got this little part sticking out. And when you go to this little dent inside with a tree in it even. Behind the tree is an entrance. You got a, well, pretty tiny rattle to be honest. You got some room for the fences and it goes down beds work, so that's a good part. But it is not too big. Now at 86, 15.7. Is the Redwoods Bridge again. And there's the edge of the map. Under this kind of bridge, whatever it is, you can see a platform and there's a tiny little rattle. It is not big, it is just a straight path. So this is basically it. Next up, at the same chords at 86.2, 16.7. Instead of this platform, you got the right bottom here where there's actually another rattle. So right here you can see you got this area. This one is a lot better than the one above here. You got a bit of space. It goes all the way down here. And then you do have a ton of space. Look at this. So this is really defendable, really spacious. You got everything you need here. And for the top little rattle, you could just place a little TP there or something. I don't know. Now at 11.8, 67.5. Quick look around. Lava Island again. And on this rock, over here, underneath in the bushes, I'm pretty sure it's this one. Yeah, you got the entrance right there. You have a bit of a drop down going into a small base. Beds don't work here though, and it's pretty damn small, so there's not much you can do. Now at 14.6, 48.9. There's the red up again. Here's a pretty tall pillar, and underneath there you can already see the part that is a bit more black because of the shadow. There is a hole. And you got this rattle in there. Beds do not work and the hole is gigantic. So this is not a very defendable spot. But it could be a nice TP spot. Now at 44.8, 3.6. Also on the edge of the map you got this huge pillar. And you got this rattle that we talked about before. This one is probably the most popular of all these copycat rattles there is. There's a huge amount of space here, like you can see. Beds do work. I didn't paint this one green, but they do work. And it is not 6 times damage. So this one might be the best of them all. Now for the underwater rattles at 14.7, 15.4. This one is pretty known, edge of the map. You got this ramp down into a kind of a dock area. If you go down here... Whoa, let me do some commands. To look better underwater, I do really simple cheats, which is r.fox0. You will see a lot better underwater. And here in the corner you can see the entrance. It is a little sloped entrance. It is not the best spot, but it's also not weak. It is, you know, pretty defendable. However, you can of course not build on the floor, but you also don't need a cliff plat. You can just build off the wall like this. And just like that. Make sure to line it up right above the border, because otherwise you can't place anything on the floor. However, beds do not work on this spot. At 14.6, 82.7. Quick look around here. It's in the deep caves, and right here in this little intake, you can see there is area underneath. So you got this bit, you can of course put some defenses here. And in the end, it goes straight up. You have a little bit of space for a base. Beds work in this spot, and you have a tiny bit of room above here as well. At 12.9, 83.3. Again, in a pretty deep cave. If you go over here, you can go out of the cave. But you got the crystals here. And you got this little corner with the crystals and the bushes. If you go in here, you can see it goes up. So you already have this sort of part. But if you go all the way back here, you have a second part for a base. Of course, this is not the best spot, but it's also not that bad. You have a decent amount of space and that works. Now at 47.3, 83.6. Quick look around again in the deep caves. And right here behind this plant and this little rock kind of sticking out, flat rock, behind the yellow plant is the entrance, right here. And you have a tiny bit of space. Beds work. Little space under. Little space above. This one is not big. Now at 41.2, 81.8. Quick look around. And here you got one of these things sticking out, which we had land bases in. Before. But now this one is here underwater. You can also not build into this one, so that's really cool. Unless they of course can get a foundation here, so make sure you have a cliff plat somewhere in the bottom here, so they cannot do that. And it's hard to destroy. Then you have this massive area. Of course, it goes all the way to above here. I'd say this one is actually better than the land ones, since you cannot PTE dash or do whatever with any flyer in here. You simply cannot do that. So I do like the spot. Of course, beds working is a big plus. Next up at 27.1, 83.4. There's the blue up. This is the island next to blue up. And if you go right down here, you can see the sort of, it is like a little platform with a wall around it. If you go in here, you can see the entrance. This rattle is also copy-pasted a couple times. However, this rattle beds work. And you have land area. You have an area inside of the bubble. Right here. This is all breathable. This also means if you don't have a tech generator, you can still live in here. Which makes this really good. You have a bunch of places here as well. Here's a little water space again. Above here as well. Little space with water. So this is huge. This is honestly a pretty good base spot. Next up at 27.9, 83.2. Here the rain and the thunder. Beautiful. Anyway, blew up. Island next to blew up. Basically the same place. If you go underneath here, that was the last one. Here is another one. And with the, basically same entrance. If you go in here, beds also work. And you also have some land in here. This area is a bit bigger than the last one. You got some land in here. A little bit water back here as well. And if you go to the other land part, right here, you have a decent amount of land again. There's a lot of little tunnels here to explore and to build in. So these two rattles are right next to each other, but both pretty good. Next up at 69.3, 80.5. Quick look around there. And then this rock where you can also see this weird bottom. Underneath here you can already see the hole. Next to this weird sand with no textures almost. And here you can go straight up. This is a pretty big entrance, a Baslow even fits here. So that does make this base a lot weaker. However, bats work and it's still pretty big, so you can still make something pretty good out of this one. Now at 2547.1, quick look around there. So there's Lava Island, but if we look in this direction and go down, you can see here we're in a sort of, yeah, crater, whatever. And you got the entrance right here. You can see the hole, it's also pretty big. And you can see the mesh walls right behind it. You have a decent amount of space, but you have to watch out for the mesh walls since they are very easy to mesh. And beds don't even work here. At 9.6, 87.1. Quick look around. You can see there's the top again, so we're right next. You can look outside, so we're not inside of the big cave, which we can see there. You got another one of these pillars sticking out. And you can also go in there again. You cannot really build in here, however, they can place turrets pretty high up, so they shoot your entrance. So watch out for that. However, if you build here, I'm gonna assume you have a teleporter as well. So you should be okay. Beds work in this place, so that's really good. And you have a ton of space to do with whatever you want. Now at 4.8, 28.2. Quick look around, we're basically in a waterfall on the edge of the map. And in this corner, if you go into the water, oh, and over this wall, this all looks really unfinished, but go over the wall, then in this corner you have a triangle where you can go in. And you actually have a decent amount of space. However, beds sadly don't work. I didn't paint it red, I don't know why. But this could be a pretty nice breeding station for your tames. Just be aware, basilos do take damage here, so that's a big con. Now at 37.6, 0.3. Quick look around, edge of the map. And you can see this kind of rock sticking out. If you go down here, you can see, hey, there's an area in here. So this is already a sort of rattle, I guess. But if you go underneath here, you have a pretty large space up, which you can use as a, well, breeding station also, right? You have to be careful though, on this side you do have a little bit of a larger entrance. It is not that large, but it's still something you have to think about. At 5.4, 61.5. Again, edge of the map behind Lava Island. So that's the rathole. There's an island, and you're gonna look for this little rock sticking out. If you go underneath here, you can already see that is kind of the deepest part, and you can see the, well, shadow here of there's an entrance. When you go inside there, you have a little hidey hole. However, beds don't work and it's not that big. Now at 43.9, 1.5. Quick look around again. Edge of the map, you got this little slow part. If you go down into the water, you can see another slow part here. If you go in it, you have a pretty long tunnel to the back. So of course you could make some devils here. They're not gonna be the strongest, this is not the strongest spot, but again, you could use it for breeding, I guess, or something like that. Sadly though, beds do not work here. Now at 72.2, 43.7. Quick look around here. You got this little bridge with the pillar. And this is basically the same rattle as the ones on Floating Island. You're gonna go underneath here. This little flat rock, there's a little flat rock, and here's the entrance. First you have a pretty small entrance, so this spot is pretty strong, I'm not gonna lie. Then you have a ton of space. Sadly, beds do not work. However, I mean, look at the space, this is pretty good. At 70, 36.1. Quick look around here. We're basically in this corner and you have a little ledge there. It's a pretty harsh ledge, so it does kind of show. And behind here is the entrance to another rattle. Beds do not work here, sadly. You have a bit of space for the fences in there. But if you go down here, you can see there's a hole. It's kind of hard to get into. This is pretty small, so that's good for the base. And you have some more space down here. A bunker fits here very well. Like you can see, you have a ton of space for a bunker. So good spot for that. You do have to watch out for meshes. And sadly, beds don't work. Next up at 69.9, 36.6. Quick look around again. We are pretty close to the other one. And here you can see this really flat rock, and in the back you can see there is a crack here. Go into it. You have a pretty weird little tunnel to the edge and, well, to the end. And here you have the base spot. It is not too big, beds also don't work, and it looks kind of weird because this is basically a big mesh wall. So really easy to mesh as well. At 21.8, 42.4. Quick look around, there's Lava Island over there. If you look at this pointy pillar between these two pillars and then go down, you can see that this little bridge, and on the right side of the bridge at the bottom is the entrance. Beds do not work here and you only have a little bit of space. So this one is not the best. At 24.5, 54. Lava Island again. Over here, look at the red orb, go down. And then in this wall behind all the plants, I'll kind of slowly go to it so you kind of can see where it is. Because this one is pretty hard to find. We got a underwater crouch, which is really OP. I'm not sure if this is bannable or not. I don't know. But you have to place a vacuum here to then walk up, crouching. Otherwise you cannot fit through here. You have to throw out any tame, use it as a crowd pot entrance. And then you have this little bit of space. Beds do not work, sadly. You also got a bit of space up here. So very OP entrance, but not a lot of space. At 25.77. Quick look around. Again, island next to blue up. This island. If you go down, you can see you have another one of these, yeah, weird platforms with the walls around it. And you can see the hole right there. You again have this area. Beds do not work in this one though, but you have a huge open space here. However, there is no air bubble, so you can only build it with vacuums. 1480.7. Quick look around again. If you go down here, you can see you again have this little platform with the walls around, but this time it is in this corner. You can see the entrance. Again, if you go down, you have a little space here again. Beds do not work, and a really big open space here. These are really great for breeding, so there's probably one open at least. 9.681. Quick look around, again these little islands. If you go down, we again have the same thing, but now in this corner. You have a even tinier entrance. Opens up again. Down here, beds don't work, but you again have a huge amount of space. Now at 41.2, 80.6. We have been here before, we were at that pillar, and now we're at this one right next to it. Don't ask me why I didn't put them right next to each other. There's a lot of spots, okay, so I kinda lost it in organizing where what spot goes. Beds do work, of course, and you have a bit of space here. It is not as big as the other ones, it is not as strong as the other one, but it's still here. At 1579.2. Quick look around, we're in the big cave again. And we got another crouch rat hole. If you go here, it's next to this lava. Next to the plants. You can see the vacuum sticking out, but this would be pretty hard to find. Here you have to place a vacuum, crouch in it, even though it looks really, really small. Beds work here. And you have a good amount of space here. I mean, look at this. You got all the space. You have to watch out for the mesh walls. So I would advise to place your war room somewhere in this corner. With a lot of connections, a lot of spam and turrets and aggressive tames. It should be sort of okay. You have so much space, you have a very strong entrance and beds work. This is a pretty good one. At 19.1, 38.5. Quick look around. Then down here, you're gonna go underneath this bridge. And then to the left you can see this little corner. This little triangle. And in it you can already see the entrance. The entrance is pretty big. And this whole base is surrounded in mesh walls. I know that I say it a lot, but to be honest, any base on center is pretty easy to mesh. Any spot. So you do really have to be careful of that. But these mesh walls are just a tiny tad easier than the rest. At 1586. Quick look around in the cave again. And right there, you can see this really flat platform and a huge hole in the edge. Well, it goes into a smaller hole, so the entrance is still pretty small. And then it opens up again and you have this really weird base spot. I can't lie, if you're standing here, it kind of looks really strange. Like, where the f am I? But beds works, that's nice. At 76.5, 21.3. Edge of the map again, giant waterfall. Near the edge of the map, here's the big bridge above us and the waterfalls. And underneath here, you can already see the hole in the wall. Is a red hole. Beds do work here, it is not 6 times damage, but you also don't have that much space and the entrance is kind of on the bigger side. Next up at 17.1, 80. In the deep caves again. And right here you can already see the corner that there's a hole there. This one is pretty shit, but I still wanted to show you. It is a pretty good TP spot for Dunkleo station, like to farm some metal and stuff. Beds work, but of course 6 times damage. At 15.6, 77.8. Quick look around here. Then you have this corner. You can already see like, hey, there is something here. When you go in here to the left, you can go straight up into another really small kind of TP area. Great for a little TP, but that's about it. Next up at 24.2, 90.7. On the edge of the map, you can see the giant underwater caves there. You got this very lonely pillar and we actually have a crouch here. So you gotta crouch to get in. This is one of the copy-pasted rattles. So you crouch to get in, oh, like this. And you have some underwater space down here. It is 6 times damage, but beds work. It is also not too big because of the sand kind of sticking through the spot. At 9.3, 85. Underwater here again. And here you can already see that there's a sort of cave behind it. That's kind of what it looks like, with metal right in front. And you have a little spot here where beds work. It is 6 times damage. This is also great for a Dunkleo spot because you can swim in and out with the Dunkleo, which is really nice. 21.7, 87.1. Look around again in the deep caves. And then on top of here you got these yellow plants. And the spot is right behind the yellow plants. You have again a small space for a teleporter. Nothing great. 13.7, 89.3. Flat rock. Quick look around here. Then on the top right you have a little kind of ledge. Underwater this is not really great. This is just a TP spot to be honest. We got a crouch spot at 21.1, 89.6. Quick look around. In here you got this pillar kind of pointing to the ground. And if you go in here, you do need a vacuum because you need to crouch right here to get in. And there we have it. It is 6 times damage, but beds work and you have a decent amount of space. This spot is not all bad. It also goes down quite a bit, but of course it's pretty narrow. 21.6, 84.7. Quick look around again. This spot also has a really nice history for me, because on ASC there used to be these plants in the ceiling and I had a vacuum base in the plants. So it never got found, but it auto-decayed at some point, sadly. Which is not doable on PC or on ASA because of all the cheaters. But here we have it, it's just a small TP spot once again, nothing special. 26.8, 89.3. Quick look around here. Right here in this thicker part, where it kinda cracks open. You go in the back of there and you can already see the spot here. It is a really tight entrance, but it's also really small. Like you can see. So again, TP spot, but that's it. At 34.3, 89.9. Quick look around once again. You got in this pillar, which of course we have seen before, is the entrance right there. This entrance is a bit bigger, sadly. And it is 6 times damage, so this is not the strongest pillar. However, it's still here, it's still alright. For a crowdpot rattle, 25.9, 88. Quick look around. right here. You can see the crack in the ground. If you go inside, you need to throw a tame down below here. I'm not gonna show it because it's pretty easy. And then right here you have to wait 5 minutes for the cryo timer because you need to cryopot it again and then throw it out through here. Of course you cannot really use a Pelagornis unless you place vacuums there. So you're gonna use a Dimetrodon or Diplocaulis. I always get this name wrong. I also say Dimetrodon, but that's a different name. Diplo. You want a Diplo. Next spot at 27.4, 82.1. This is in a water bubble, so I'm still gonna count it as underwater, but you have full air here, there is no water in here. If you go in this little, ruin, you can see the entrance right on top of here, but you don't fit. But also throwing out a Pella does not really work. So what you need is the Wisp of Industry skill. You're gonna need this skill because I couldn't throw anything out. I tried multiple times, didn't work. So you gotta go with this thing. Basically go around here, place a foundation and place a bed right on top. And then you should be fine. Next up at 47.6, 25.6. Quick look around here. Next to the waterfall you got this part over here, and if you go underneath it, you can see the crack on top. Right there you have to throw out a Pelagornis, but this one is really easy to throw out. You can just go through it and you have a massive amount of space. Also beds do not work here. At 50, 17.1. Quick look around here. Then the rattle is right there. This one is kind of easy to get it thrown out. You stand kind of here and throw the Pelagornis out. However, riding it is a bit harder. You want to make sure he's kind of sideways until you can kind of fly on him. We finally got it. Now at 19, 57.4. Quick look around. Next to this lava pool with the little waterfall there. Or is that a crystal? No, it is a waterfall, my bad. On the right side here, behind the trees and behind the bushes is the entrance. It's kinda hard to find on first sight because of all the bushes, but here it is. Throwing out a Pelagornis and riding it is very easy on this spot, so don't even worry about that. And then you have this a decent amount of space right here. There you go. But this one is kind of harder. The first time it took me like 5 minutes to get it. Beds do not work here, but you do have a ton of space. I mean, look at this. It goes back here, down below as well. Into a giant tunnel. So you're not gonna run out of space anytime soon. Just be careful of measures, you do need a hole inside covered in turrets. At 53.2, 25.2. Quick look around once again. Right there you can see the trees right there. And this weird ledge here. And a little bit darker because of the holes right there. You want to take the top hole. Then right there you can easily throw a Pella out and ride it. This spot is also pretty damn easy to do. And then you have a massive amount of space. It is a bit darker because it counts as being in a cave. However, it is not 6 times either, so it's kind of weird. Beds do not work here either. But I mean, look at the space you have. You have full tunnels. And then this. This is huge. At 63.2. Quick look around. There's the Redwoods Bridge. I don't know why it's so foggy. I got fog turned off, but it's still here, so I don't know. And underneath those trees, you got this kind of darker area. And this little ledge behind it. If you go in here, you have to throw a Pella out again. Even a PT works here, by the way, but Pella is easier. There you got this spot. Beds do not work, but you do have a good amount of space. At 43.6, 26.8. Quick look around here, there's the green orb. You got this middle biggest pillar on the floating island. And if you go in this crack, you can already see there's something behind there. And you got this upper part and this part, but you want to go to this hole, because this is simply easier to throw a tame out. You just throw the tame through this hole, whistle it towards you, and you can easily ride it and fly it. Then you're in this base spot. It is not 6 times damage, bats do work, and you got a okay amount of space. 39.6, 23.2, again floating island. We get this area here. And here is the entrance to the mesh hole. At 47.1, 31.6. Quick look around, it's on the floating island. You can see the hole here. 6 times damage, bats work, however this leads into the mesh, so it's very bannable. At 38.3, 26.9. Quick look around here, there's the green orb. And inside here, in the ceiling, you can see the crack, you can see the light of the generator. You got the mesh hole right here. If you go up, you go underneath the floating island floor. At 32.9, 11.2. That's the ice palace. And in the corner here, you can already see the crack with the generator light. Just like that. If you go here, there is water though, so you can only swim here. And you're underneath this whole floor. 50.1, 50.6, 8.2. Quick look around, you can see the hole there. It's a pretty big hole even, I don't know how they missed this one. And then you're here. 4.4. There's a rat hole, but above the rat hole is a hole into the mesh. Right here. 63.7, 15.3. You can see the little shadow here. It is right around the corner. Just like this, and you're in the mesh. At 43, 87.4. Quick look around. You can see this crack here. It is inside of the crack, of course. Then you kind of got you gotta find your way up. 6 times damage, bats work, and you're in the mesh. 69.9, 17.9. Next to the waterfalls, underneath the bridge. In as well, you can already see the crack again. And it's of course inside of there. And you're in the mesh. 35.5, 33.3. If you go in the water and then towards this little corner, you got the entrance and you're in the mesh again. 38.2, 32.6. In the floating island, underneath is the giant entrance to the cave. Then the hole is to the right. In this crack, the next crack, so not the one that I was just at. Then we go up, and here we have it. Then you're in the floating island, under the map. 69.9, 86.4. Here we go. And when you go on top of here, you have a giant entrance towards the mesh. However, this one is not that big, so you cannot really do anything from here, but still, it's bannable, watch out. At 47.8, 4. Quick look around here. In here you got the cave. Well, a cave. It kind of looks like a cave. If you go down to the right, you're deep in the mesh again. 92, 35.8. In the redwoods. And in this corner. Oh god. Above here. You gotta find your way to the end. It's kinda going through really small tunnels, and here you are. In the mesh of the redwoods. 13.8, 88.1. Quick look around. It's over here on top. And here we are in the mesh. You can go all the way to the surface. 42.8, 77. Quick look around again. And then in this wall you can see there's a sort of cave looking entrance. Where you go inside, and on top you go into the mesh. 34.2 minus 0.3. You got this little ledge, some bushes, and to the right. You gotta find one of the ways. Yeah, it's going up, and then you're in the mesh as well. 33.9, 88.6. Quick look around. It's in this slow part. In here. Oh. You can just jump through there. You do have to crouch though, so that's why you need to vacuum. And then you're under the map. 34.1, 84.7. Quick look around. And it is in this corner. You can see the crack. Right here. And if we go straight up, we go under the map. 33.3, 90. Quick look around. And then to the right here. There's a vacuum and you're under this little piece of mesh. This is also not that big, but still bannable, so watch out. 66.6, 89.8. Quick look around. And here is it underneath. It's under this giant platform. You got this little corner, you go in. You're again under a small piece of mesh. 5.5, 89. Quick look around. Again, under this platform, you have this little triangle looking thing. And there's the entrance. Beds work and you're under the mesh. At 32.2, 4.2. Well, I removed the fog, but it's still kind of there. Well, in the ceiling here, you can already see the crack. This is not hard to find. And in the middle, another crack to the mesh. 12.8, 87. In the top right, you can see the crack. You can see that there's space. You do need to crouch here, so place a vacuum. I'm just gonna use a grapple. It's easier. At 14, 80.3. In the ceiling here. And you go into the mesh. At 44, 8.8. Quick look around. Then you got this weird wall, so this is really easy to find. And there's a giant hole. Sorry, my ghost was still on, but there's a giant hole and you go into the mesh. At 19.3, 56.4. We go in this hole. And then to the left of the waterfall, you can either fly right above here. And here you are. At 50.3, 62.8. Down here. When you go into the big lava cave to the right on top, you got the entrance right here. At 34.9, 35.7. You can see this ledge here, it is a bit darker color. And to the right you got the crack. And there you go. 49, 39.9. In the edging cave again. And then in the corner, right here, you can already see it. The ground just stops. Then you're under the edging cave.